A lot of times, if the old timers or people that get to pick, they watch it until it does mold, and then they say, oh yeah, now it's time to cut it. Well, in this video today, we're going to talk a little bit more about the processing of the meat. Obviously, it's raised here on our ranch and our farm. We know these animals from when they were baby calves all the way through the process. What I do to select animals for customers as they buy them, we go and we look through the pen, and we take the very heaviest, best muscle, best finished, and just do what we call topping the pen. So if I have 4 kill dates today, I'm going to go out to that pen and I'm going to pick the 4 best animals that I have. And we're going to move them down and we're going to weigh them. We're going to take a record of the tag number so that we know individually which animal is assigned to which customer. And then a brand inspector comes and he verifies the ownership of those animals and that they were raised here on our ranch. And he will fill out a brand inspection for that customer that bought it with their name on it, have the tag number and the identification marks of the animal on there, and a separate brand inspection for each customer and each animal that goes to the butcher shop. Then at the butcher shop, when they kill the animal to begin the butchering and processing, they identify it with the tag that's on it, and they track that meat all the way through the process. So I know exactly what meat and what the live weight of the animal was that the customer is going to get in their box at the end process. It's not a random thing. So in selling a half a beef, it's again us not pulling 3 roasts from here and a certain amount of hamburger from here. They take the animal and they split it right down the spinal column, and all of the cuts of meat from a wholesale level, the round, the chuck, the rib, the loin, everything is processed into those wholesale cuts, and then it's processed into the retail cuts based on what the customer tells the butcher. So you have choices on steak thickness, the size of the roasts, how much hamburger you want in a package, if you want cube steaks, various things like that. So you're working with the anatomy of the animal, the process of butchering that is well known and very standard across the United States as far as certain cuts and how they break it down. But then you're getting to customize certain things about how you want it so it fits your family, the size of your family, your particular methods that you prefer to cook the meat in. They can make some small changes there. And so all of our butchers age the meat for at least 14 days. When we try to create tenderness in an animal and a quality product, I try to control it as much as I can from the beginning clear to the end. I start with the genetics. I know exactly what he's going to do genetically. Then I control the feed. I feed him in a way that I think is the best to optimize the marbling and the flavor of that meat. Then when we take it to the butcher shop, there's a lot of butchers I won't use, but the ones that I do are good because as they kill the animal, they do it in a humane and efficient way. They get the animal hung on the rail as the carcass quickly, and then they go to a chill box. And so it's very important then to bring the hot temperature of the animal down to a cool temperature really fast, and that maintains freshness. And once that chilled temperature is accomplished, then they put them in a cool box to age them for 14 to 18 days. In that cool box, it's not frozen. It's just like a refrigerator. And it allows all of the muscle tissues to relax. I mean, we can go and talk proteins and ATP and myosins and how the protein works, but it just allows it all to relax, and some chemical changes are happening as that happens. A lot of times then in that process, the outer part of the carcass, usually the fat or just the outer layer, it dries out quite a bit. And occasionally it'll even grow some mold on it, which in most people's mind, when the aging process is a positive. A lot of times if the old timers or people that get to pick, they watch it until it does mold, and then they say, oh yeah, now it's time to cut it. And so, you know, in our butchers, I've watched them roll them out of those cool rooms and start to process them, and you can see there's a little mold on there from the aging process. And then they start to trim the meat, and they'll break them down into, again, those wholesale cuts, and they trim all of that external dried stuff off the outside. They trim the fat so the back fat is uniform around the steaks, and then they start to size the roasts and dress them and take cartilage and other negative things out of that as they process it, until you get these wrapped retail cuts that are uniform, cleaned up, nice. Now when you have steaks with bones in them, like the loin, they run those on a bandsaw, and they just set a guard on there and they cut them at the 1.25 inches or whatever you want, so they're very uniform, and they go down that wholesale cut of the loin, and then they scrape them because there's a little residue on there, and it's very uniform. It doesn't matter which butcher shop you go to in the United States, it's very uniform. Steaks that don't have a bone in them, that they don't have to use a saw on, they cut them with a knife, and the butcher's quality and attention to detail on that makes a big difference, right? So if you didn't want T-bone steaks, you just wanted the New York or the ribeye, I mean, they could carve it off the bone and do that all just perfect for you, however you'd like. Ultimately, then, you know, they wrap it in paper, generally double wrapped, usually with a plastic layer and then a paper layer. They stamp it with the customer's name on it, because they're working for that customer that bought that meat. So they stamp it with his name on it and the name of the cut of the meat. And then they put it in crates to put it in a freezer. Now we've done the aging process, which allows the muscle to relax. And now we're going to freeze this meat at, you know, at least -10, and a lot of times colder than that, -18 degrees. So it's just frozen rock solid. And that is actually another tenderizing method. As that meat freezes to these extreme below zero temperatures, the cell structure of the muscle and the protein again breaks down a little bit, and it ruptures. And so then when you take that home, it needs to be that way to transport it, right? We want to transport frozen meat so that it's safe for people, and you get it home and you put it in your deep freeze, and you're going to store it at those temperatures anyway. And so it stays completely frozen until you decide to bring it from your deep freeze and thaw it out to cook it for dinner.